The reason you're not further ahead is because you're not communicating with conviction and confidence. When people start out, they're timid, which is totally normal, but it's also very deadly. The best business people in the world and the people that get their deals funded can speak very intelligently with a lot of confidence and a lot of conviction. I'm Meg Obel Epstein, and I've gotten over 10 deals funded in real estate over the last 10 years. And I attribute a lot of my success to being able to pick up the phone, talk to people confidently, and I have a lot of conviction about what I'm talking about. The first deal I ever got funded required about $6 million in equity. And I picked up the phone, called someone I didn't know, and got him to fund it because I had so much conviction and confidence around the deal. Since then, I've raised over $30 million across 2 discretionary funds. I've funded hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate development projects from institutional investors, and there's no way I would be where I am today without being able to communicate about myself, my projects, how enthusiastic I was about them, and really communicated a lot of confidence and conviction when I speak. When I first started my career, I was building luxury homes, ultra luxury homes, like $50 million plus homes in California for very elite billionaire type people. And since then, I've done, hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate development projects for my own company. And the people that are at the top, either, my initial clients when I was in the residential space or the top investors in the world, communicate in a certain way, and they expect you to be able to communicate to them in a certain way. And so it's really important to understand those things. So the first thing, which is pretty obvious, is that you need to speak with conviction. How do you do that? Mainly, you need to know your deal and you need to know all of your facts and you need to know your numbers and do your research. When people are full of it, smart people can tell really quickly. And now that I've, been in this space for over 10 years and I get my own pitches now, I can almost instantly tell when someone's totally full of it and they don't know their stuff. So the first step in presenting your deal or communicating, in a way that is like the elite is to know your facts and do your research, and that'll give you the confidence and conviction to communicate well because you'll that comes out in your communication. So you have to have the background there for whatever you're presenting on to come off confident and have a lot of conviction. You need to do the work. You need to fully understand what you're talking about and not just shoot from the hip and come off the cuff, because that is always very obvious, especially to real professionals or to very successful people. Highly successful people do a lot of analysis when looking at any certain project or situation. And so what you need to do is look at the project that you're presenting on or whatever you're communicating about and write a list of every single different thing that can come up before you start pitching to someone that's super successful. Because there are a million different questions that can be asked, and you need to drill and have answers to those questions so you don't look like you don't know what you're doing. Do it in front of other people that get your presentation or get your pitch, and they'll think of things that you didn't think of, that be able to say, what are you going to do if XYZ doesn't work out? What if the market changes? How much contingency have you added into your underwriting? Like different questions that really smart people are going to ask you. Write it all out and drill it before, you get into a situation where you're communicating with someone that's very successful, because it'll make you that much more confident in what your pitch is, and it'll make you come across much better. Another thing I've observed with working with ultra successful people is that they don't talk about how great they are or how much money they have or their successes. It's almost an inverse ratio, if I had to say it. Some of the most important, smart people I've ever worked with, starting with billionaires when I was 20 until now with institutional real estate investors, they don't need to tell you about how great they are. Their statistics speak for themselves, and they don't, have to be flashy and tell you how great they are. The people that are actually really important are very understated, is what my experience is. And whenever someone, I'm pitching to an investor and they're telling me how much money they have and that they're going to do this and that, and they're super excited to get started and they're going to give me a check, I kind of have a red flag raise up and go, they sound kind of full of it. So in my experience, when you're communicating with people, it's very off-putting to get into, you have to be confident, but to brag about what you've done or what you have or, and anything like that. The very, very successful people in this world do not talk about themselves really, they do not brag about themselves, and they're not overtly ostentatious, I would say. So you have to keep it classy and have your experience, your deal speak for itself. Another thing is I know I don't want to sound too old, but you have to speak well when you're in a situation where you're wanting to, if you want to come off as very successful or you're speaking to successful people. I notice, especially with younger generations, that there's a lot of likes, yeahs interspersed in into the communication. So one way to really catch yourself doing this, because one thing I used to say was, oh yeah, no, this is what it is. Yeah, no. And my husband would go, is it yeah or is it no? And it was just this sort of tick I had. One thing you can do is record yourself having a conversation or on a Zoom call when you're talking to someone that's important or an investor, and go back and listen to yourself, because usually it's a subconscious mannerism that you don't realize, and you're saying, lots of yeahs, things that make you not sound eloquent. And it's really easy to kind of go back when you listen to yourself, even though it's a little uncomfortable, and catch yourself and really train yourself not to sound super casual, especially when you're in a business environment or you're working with really successful people, because you need to be able to speak eloquently and not sound like a valley girl or totally informal, depending on what you're doing, because that does make an impression for people. When I have, mentees reach out to me and they've done their research and they present themselves well, I will spend the time with them and I'll work with them. If someone reaches out to me and it's totally off the cuff, they're not prepared and they sound really unprofessional, then I don't want to invest my time. And lastly, doing your research and really know what environment you're going into is something that I see ultra successful people do, because it can be very off-putting if you don't know your audience or you don't do the research about the person you're meeting with. So if you're going to go and pitch someone on a deal, you better know what deals have they invested in, where are they from, go on their LinkedIn, go look at their website, and at least show that you know enough about that person, that you cared enough to do some prep work before you have a call, and you're not going to waste their time asking them, what are you looking for in an investment, or what's your favorite type of asset class to invest in? I mean, it's really stupid these days if you can get the information online. I noticed that very successful people are very well prepared and they are respectful of others. And a way that shows you're respectful of others is by doing the work up front to prepare yourself and make sure that you are not asking stupid questions and wasting their time. Along those lines, people, you got to, knowing your audience, you don't want to go into a situation and be a total fish out of water. So if you're going to meet with, some finance banker type, you better dress well. You better look like a professional. If you're going to talk to a farmer about something and you show up in a suit, that's going to be offensive to them, right? So it's kind of about knowing your audience and doing the research up front and making sure that you're respecting the person you're either want something from or you're communicating with, by making sure you know enough about them or you did enough research and you're respecting them enough and showing up that way. That is what ultra successful people do. They do not offend people or show up unprepared. They're extremely prepared. And a lot of them, have people to prep them for things now. But when you're first starting out, you have to do it yourself. I've actually taken a lot of courses on how to communicate well, and one in particular that's prepped me a lot for more stressful situations. You can reach out to me. I can let you know more about that. But it's not one single trick. You have to be able to communicate well, have a lot of conviction, have a lot of confidence, being outgoing enough. And the ultra successful people I see are able to reach out to people, talk to a lot of people every day. They're not super introverted. And so it's an extremely important skill set. If you want to hear more about how I got my first project funded, please watch this next video.